Get on your knees right now. You think that uniform fools anybody? You do not look like any real soldier to me." Officer Trent Lawson snarled, his voice thick with contempt as he loomed over Major Nadia Brooks. His hand already rested on his holster, eyes narrowed behind dark glasses. In the space of a single heartbeat, he drew and fired. The bullet tore into her chest with merciless force. Nadia crumpled to the oil-stained concrete, blood surging dark and fast across her uniform. Her face contorted in searing pain and deep humiliation as she struggled with fading strength to pull her 8-year-old daughter Isla beneath her body, shielding the child even as her own life slipped away. That single act of violence, captured clearly on a bystander's phone, would destroy Trent Lawson's career, strip Chief Donovan Briggs of his badge and pension, drive Officer Blake Hollis to the edge of despair, and bring Mayor Preston Langley's political life to ruin. One pull of the trigger, and 4 men who believed themselves untouchable would fall hard and forever. Before I take you deeper into this story, tell me where you are watching from. Drop your city or state in the comments. If this moment has your blood boiling, subscribe and like. It helps more people see the truth. Let us continue. Major Nadia Brooks had only stopped at the familiar gas station in Southside Chicago to fill her tank and buy Isla an ice cream cone. She was still in full-duty uniform because she had driven straight from the nearby base after being granted short emergency leave from her active deployment in Afghanistan. The rank on her collar and the American flag on her shoulder were earned through years of service, through danger most civilians could not imagine. At 38, Nadia carried herself with quiet authority, the kind forged in command tents and under fire. Isla walked beside her, small hand in her mother's, eyes bright with the rare joy of having Mom home, even if only for a few precious days. The patrol car screeched in hard, tires smoking as it blocked her path. Lawson stepped out first, aviators hiding his eyes, jaw clenched in instant suspicion. The moment he saw her skin, her uniform, her presence. Blake Hollis followed, younger, hesitant, but he said nothing. Lawson circled her slowly, voice dripping disdain. "Uniform looks too perfect. Where did you really get it? Some costume site online?" Nadia kept her composure, voice even and professional. "I am Major Nadia Brooks, United States Army, active duty. Here is my military identification." She reached carefully into her breast pocket. Lawson slapped the card from her hand. It spun across the concrete. "Get on your knees. Do it now." Isla pressed closer, whimpering. Nadia stepped fully in front of her daughter, shielding her completely. "Sir, I am holding my child. I will not kneel." Lawson's face twisted. "You do not get to decide that here." His fingers tightened on his weapon. Kai Rivera, pumping gas 2 islands over, felt ice in his veins. He knew that tone, that look. He had seen it before. Quietly, he slipped out his phone and began recording, hand trembling but steady enough. He knew this could end in tragedy. He also knew staying silent would make him part of it. Lawson stepped closer, gun now half drawn. "Last chance, kneel or I make you." Nadia lifted her chin, eyes locked on his. "I have served this country with honor. I have led soldiers in battle. I will not kneel on American soil in uniform while holding my daughter." Her words were calm, firm, unbreakable. Isla clutched her mother's leg, ice cream forgotten on the ground. "Mommy," she whispered, voice breaking. Lawson's lip curled. Wrong answer. The gunshot exploded. Nadia's body jerked violently. She dropped to her knees first, then collapsed forward, one arm still wrapped protectively around Isla. Blood poured from the wound, soaking the proud flag on her sleeve, spreading in a dark halo beneath her. Pain flashed across her face, sharp and raw. But worse was the humiliation, the indignity of being gunned down in her own country, in her uniform, for nothing more than existing while black and in authority. Her breath came in ragged gasps. She looked into Isla's terrified eyes and forced a faint smile. "Baby, stay strong for Mommy. I love you." Her hand, slick with blood, brushed her daughter's cheek one last time. Isla screamed. A piercing cry that echoed through the station and into every witness's soul. She fell to her knees beside her mother, trying to hold her, trying to stop the blood. "Mommy! Mommy, wake up! Please!" Lawson stood over them, gun still pointed, chest heaving. "Subject refused multiple commands," he reported into his radio, voice cold, mechanical, as if reading from a script. Hollis stared at the scene, face drained of color, hands shaking uncontrollably. He had followed Lawson because he was the senior officer. Now he wondered what he had followed him into. Across the lot, Kai kept filming, tears streaming down his face. He whispered to himself, "I got it. I got it all." He knew posting this would put a target on his back, but he also knew the truth had to be seen. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Paramedics would arrive soon. But for Major Nadia Brooks, active duty officer, decorated leader, devoted mother, those sirens came too late. Her blood continued to spread across the concrete, staining the colors she had sworn to defend. Her eyes remained open, fixed on her daughter as her strength faded. Isla, sobbing, fumbled for her mother's phone. Her small fingers smeared with blood, found the emergency contact. "Uncle Theo, come quick. They shot Mommy. She's not moving. Please, Uncle Theo." And in that terrible moment, with a little girl's broken voice carrying across the line, the chain of consequences ignited. What happened at a quiet gas station would soon shake a city, challenge a department, and force a nation to confront what it truly means to serve and protect. Careers would end in disgrace, lies would unravel, a child's grief would become a call to justice, and America would have to look, really look, at the price paid when those sworn to uphold the law turn their weapons on those sworn to defend the nation. Theo Reed's phone buzzed in his pocket while he sat at his kitchen table, coffee cooling untouched, thinking about the call he had promised to make to Nadia later. "Uncle Theo, come quick. They shot Mommy. She's not moving. Please, Uncle Theo." Isla's small voice shattered the quiet, broken by sobs that no child should ever have to make. Theo felt the world tilt. His heart slammed against his ribs, but years of discipline locked his voice into steel. "Isla, sweetheart, listen to me. Stay on the phone. Breathe with Uncle. Tell me the gas station name again." As she whispered it through tears, he was already out the door, keys in hand, mind racing. Nadia had prepared him for the worst years ago over late-night talks after her first deployment. "If anything happens to me here at home while I am in uniform, you call this number. No police first. Military." He dialed the secure line she had burned into his memory. "Retired Master Sergeant Theo Reed, Code Delta 79er. Active duty Major Nadia Brooks has been shot by local law enforcement in Chicago. Officer involved shooting. Immediate command notification required." The operator's response was instant, professional, urgent. "Copy that, Sergeant. Escalating to joint operations. Hold for confirmation." Theo did not hold. He drove. At Fort Meade, the alert hit the watch floor like a mortar round. Screens flashed red. General Elias Crow, a man who had buried too many soldiers and carried the weight of everyone, read the summary and stood. Active duty major shot in uniform on leave in Chicago. He felt the old anger rise, the kind he had learned to channel into action decades ago. He picked up the secure phone. "This is Crow. Pull her full jacket. Cross-reference all local feeds. I want eyes on scene." Her file appeared. Exemplary record. Multiple commendations. Leadership in high-threat environments. Crow's voice hardened. "Designate this priority Alpha. Notify the Secretary's office. We are assuming protective oversight." Orders flew. A rapid response investigative team was wheels up. Digital forensics began pulling traffic and private security footage before local servers could be wiped. In Chicago, paramedics fought chaos at the gas station. Dr. Camila Soto arrived with the second ambulance, took one look at the uniform, the rank, the blood-soaked flag, and felt her throat close. She dropped beside Nadia, hands moving fast, pressure here, intravenous there, pulse weak, breathing shallow. "Major Brooks, stay with me. You are a fighter. Fight now." She spotted the active duty tag, the classified unit marker only insiders recognized. Quietly under the noise of radios and shouts, she snapped a photo of the insignia and texted it to a trusted contact at Walter Reed. "Active officer down. Possible friendly fire incident. Need guidance." The reply came fast. "Standby. Command aware." At police headquarters, Chief Donovan Briggs slammed the door behind him as he entered the conference room. Lawson stood rigid, cold, pale, and sweating. Briggs wasted no words. "Start talking from the stop." Lawson recited it cold. "Suspicious individual in possible stolen valor uniform. Refused verbal commands. Escalated to non-compliance. I feared for officer safety." Briggs stared. "She was active military." Hollis's voice cracked slightly. "She showed ID, Chief. We thought it might be fake." Briggs exhaled sharply. "Rewrite the report. Emphasize resistance. Scrub any body cam anomalies. This stays in-house until we control the story." Lawson nodded. Hollis hesitated, then nodded too. But inside, something fractured. At the hospital, surgeons rushed Nadia into the operating room, bullet lodged near the lung, massive internal bleeding. They worked through the night, voices tense, monitors beeping warnings. Theo arrived, badge flashing, demanding access. He held Isla in the cold waiting room, rocking her as she cried herself empty. "Your mommy is strong, baby. Strongest woman I know." Isla clutched the blood-stained cap, whispering. She promised she'd come home this time. General Crow received the first surgical update. Critical but stable for now, coma-induced to reduce swelling. He made the next call himself to the deputy secretary. "Sir, we have an active duty officer shot by a local police department. Victim in critical condition. Recommend full federal oversight." Approval came swift. Military police liaison embedded with Chicago Police Department. Kai Rivera sat in his darkened apartment, video uploaded to multiple backups. He hit post. No caption, just the raw truth. Within minutes, shares exploded. Comments poured in. Outrage, grief, demands for justice. Blake Hollis drove home in silence. Wife asleep, children unaware. He sat in the garage, engine off, staring at his hands. He saw Nadia's face again, the way she shielded her daughter without thinking. Not a threat, a protector. He whispered to the empty car, "What did we do?" Briggs fielded calls from the mayor's office, from union reps, from nervous captains. "Hold the line," he kept saying, but his voice lacked conviction. He poured a drink, stared out the window at the city lights, and for the first time in years, felt fear. Theo stayed at Isla's side, telling her stories of her mother's bravery, how Nadia had once carried a wounded soldier 3 miles to safety. Isla listened, eyes wide even through tears. "Mommy will wake up, right?" Theo swallowed hard. "She will fight with everything she has." General Crow briefed his team, faces grim. "This is not overseas. This is home. We do not leave our people behind. Ever. He paused, voice low. Major Brooks is one of ours. We bring her justice. Across the nation, phones lit up with the video. Retired generals watched in disbelief. Active duty troops shared it in secure chats. Mothers held their children closer. Fathers shook their heads in anger. The story spread like wildfire, unstoppable. Lawson tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he heard the shot, saw the blood on the flag. Hollis stared at his ceiling, knowing questions he could not answer were coming. Briggs finished his drink, poured another. Langley drafted a careful statement, words measured, but already sensing the tide turning against him. The hospital monitors beeped steadily. Nadia lay still, machines breathing for her. Isla slept fitfully in Theo's arms. And outside, the first light of morning broke over Chicago, carrying with it the promise of reckoning. What began as one man's prejudice had now awakened something larger. The military closed ranks. The public demanded answers. And the men who thought they held power began to feel it slipping away, grain by grain, into the unstoppable current of truth. Kai Rivera sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, the uploaded video already spreading like wildfire across every platform, his finger still hovering over the screen as if he could pull it back. Views rocketed past 1 million, then 2, then 5. Comments poured in faster than he could read. Raw anger from some, heartbroken prayers from others, demands for justice echoing in every line. Kai leaned back, hands trembling. He had driven a rideshare for years, seen too many stops go wrong, but never like this. Never an active duty major gunned down in broad daylight. He knew posting the full unedited clip meant threats would come. Maybe visits from officers he knew. Maybe worse. But he also knew that deleting it would make him complicit forever. The video needed no caption. The truth was plain, painful, undeniable. Camila Soto, seasoned correspondent with 20 years covering conflict and injustice, caught the clip on her feed while prepping for the evening broadcast. She paused the frame on Nadia's body hitting the ground, the blood blooming across the flag patch. Her stomach turned. She had reported from war zones, but this was home. An active duty officer. She called her producer, voice urgent. Drop everything. Book me on the next flight to Chicago. This is the lead. She landed, rented a car, and drove straight to Kai's address, sourced through secure tips. He opened the door cautiously, but her press badge and quiet sincerity won him over. They sat at his kitchen table. Camila recorded his account. No interruptions, just letting him speak. I could not look away. I had to show the world. The interview aired prime time. Kai's weary face filling screens nationwide, his words reaching tens of millions more. Jordan Hale stood tall on the granite steps of Chicago Police Headquarters, bullhorn raised, surrounded by a sea of thousands that grew by the hour. Veterans in crisp uniforms stood shoulder to shoulder with families pushing strollers, activists in Black Lives Matter shirts, ordinary citizens who had left work early. Signs bobbed above heads. Justice for Major Brooks. Protect those who protect us. Her uniform was not a threat. Jordan's voice carried strong and clear. Major Nadia Brooks puts her life on the line overseas for this country. She comes home on leave, stops to buy her daughter ice cream, and gets shot for wearing the uniform she earned. This is not protection. This is betrayal. We stand here today, and we will stand tomorrow until every question is answered and every responsible party is held accountable. The crowd answered with a roar that shook the windows of the building behind him. Mayor Preston Langley appeared in the City Hall briefing room, flags flanking him, lights glaring, cameras clicking relentlessly. He gripped the podium, voice practiced and calm. The city of Chicago mourns this tragic incident involving Major Nadia Brooks, a dedicated service member. The officers have been placed on leave. A thorough investigation is underway, and we are cooperating with all authorities. Reporters fired questions like bullets. Will the officers face charges? Why was lethal force used on an active duty major in uniform? What about the video? Langley deflected each one. We must allow the process to unfold. All facts will come to light. But across living rooms in America, viewers heard only evasion, only delay. At the hospital, Nadia lay in the intensive care unit, machines breathing for her, monitors tracing fragile lines of hope. Isla refused to leave, curled in a chair beside the bed, holding her mother's hand as if sheer will could pull her back. Theo sat nearby, eyes red from no sleep, telling quiet stories to keep the girl's spirits up. When a social worker suggested Isla rest elsewhere, the child shook her head fiercely. "Mommy needs to know I'm here when she wakes up." Theo handed her Nadia's phone, showed her how to post. Isla chose a photo of her mother in full dress uniform, medals gleaming, standing proud at a ceremony. She typed slowly, carefully. "This is my mommy. She is a hero. She fights for America. Please pray she comes back to me." Within minutes, the post went viral. Strangers replied with hearts, prayers, stories of their own loved ones in service. Veterans shared memories of Nadia's leadership. A child's simple words broke through barriers that adult outrage sometimes could not. General Elias Crow tracked every development from Fort Meade. Messages flooded military channels. Troops demanding action. Commanders requesting guidance. Crow convened a secure video briefing for senior staff. Major Brooks remains in critical condition. She is active duty. This attack on her is an attack on all of us. We proceed with full transparency and full authority. He approved selective release of her commendation citations, proof of missions led, lives saved, risks taken without hesitation. The documents landed on news desks, headlines shifting from tragedy to tribute. Camila Soto broadcast live from the hospital vigil, interviewing veterans who had served under Nadia's command. One captain, voice breaking, said, "She never left anyone behind, not overseas, and we will not leave her behind now." The clip dominated evening news cycles. Jordan Hale coordinated with national chapters. Vigils sprang up in New York, Atlanta, Los Angeles. Candles flickered in parks. Uniformed personnel stood silent salute. A 4-star retired general flew in to join the Chicago line, his presence alone silencing doubters. Chief Briggs barricaded himself in headquarters, fielding furious calls from city council, union lawyers, nervous deputies. He insisted on unity. "We follow procedure. We control the message." But leaks began. Officers questioning orders in private chats. Lawson shut himself in his house, blinds drawn, television muted. His wife tried to talk. He brushed her off. She slept in the guest room that night. Hollis drove aimlessly, stopping at a quiet park, badge heavy in his pocket. He replayed every second, the command, the refusal, the shot. Guilt gnawed without mercy. Mayor Langley's team worked through the night, polling numbers crashing, drafting damage control. But each new vigil clip, each veteran's testimony chipped away at their defenses. Isla finally slept against Theo's shoulder, clutching her mother's cap. Theo watched the monitors, willing them to strengthen. Camila Soto closed her broadcast with Isla's post, reading the child's words aloud. Studios fell silent. Anchors paused longer than usual. Jordan Hale rallied the crowd one more time before nightfall. We do not leave until change comes. For Nadia, for Isla, for the promise America makes to every person who wears its uniform. General Crow ended his day with a final order. Prepare for full evidentiary handover to federal prosecutors if local stalls. The military machine moved forward, deliberate, unstoppable. Across the country, families gathered around screens, conversations turning serious. Veterans called old friends. Parents hugged children tighter. Troops overseas watched the feeds, pride mixed with fury. The video reached 30 million views. Petitions hit 1 million signatures. Congressional phones rang off the hooks. Briggs stared at his reflection, seeing cracks he could no longer ignore. Langley rehearsed another statement, but the words tasted like ash. Hollis whispered to himself in the dark, "I should have stopped it." Isla dreamed of her mother's smile, the one from the photo, strong and kind, and the nation, now bound together by shared outrage and shared grief, pressed forward. Protests swelled. Calls for justice grew louder. A soldier fought silently in a hospital bed. A daughter waited. And those who had pulled the trigger, who had ordered silence, felt the weight of consequence bearing down. Heavy, relentless, and entirely deserved. The spark Kai lit had become a movement, and movements once awake do not sleep again. The Pentagon briefing room fell silent as the first official file on Major Nadia Brooks opened on secure screens across the Department of Defense, every line confirming what the video had already screamed. General Elias Crow studied the service record in detail. Multiple combat tours in Afghanistan. Promotions earned through merit. Active duty status undisputed. Emergency leave granted solely to spend precious days with her daughter. He saw the quiet notes from superiors. Exemplary leadership. Places team welfare above self. Refused early extraction to ensure mission success. Crow closed his eyes briefly, remembering his own early days facing subtle doubt because of his skin. He reopened them, resolve hardened. He turned to his senior aide. Prepare a public summary. Release her commendations, unclassified portions only. The American people deserve to know exactly who Major Brooks is, what she has sacrificed, and why this cannot stand. The Department of Defense issued its formal statement, measured but unflinching. Major Nadia Brooks, aged 38, is an active duty officer of the United States Army with an outstanding record of service. She has led soldiers in high-threat environments, earning multiple commendations for valor and leadership. She is a devoted mother. The department is deeply troubled by this incident and is providing full support to the investigation. Attached were redacted citations describing missions where Nadia had saved lives under fire, refused personal safety until every member of her team was secure. The statement spread instantly. Headlines transformed overnight. No longer merely a police shooting. This was an assault on a decorated serving soldier. Isabella Cruz sat in her downtown office, the military file open on her desk, pages printed and highlighted. She had spent years fighting for families shattered by similar violence. Her own brother's death still a raw wound that drove every case. Reading Nadia's evaluations, she saw a woman of unbreakable integrity, someone who had faced real enemies abroad only to meet betrayal at home. Isabella picked up the phone, called Theo Reed. The military file changes everything. We file federally. Civil rights violations. Excessive force. Possible hate crime enhancement. Nadia was in uniform on leave. No threat. This is an attack on federal authority itself. Theo's voice, rough from hospital nights, answered without hesitation. File it. Whatever it takes. Isla needs to see justice for her mother. Camila Soto went live from Chicago that evening, standing outside the hospital, holding the printed release in her hand. She read directly from the citations, voice steady, but carrying the weight of truth. Major Brooks once commanded a convoy under heavy attack. She directed fire, organized evacuation, and personally carried a wounded sergeant to safety while refusing medical aid for her own injuries until all were secure. That is the woman who stopped for gas and ice cream with her daughter. That is the woman now fighting for her life. Jimdo. Cameras cut to file photos of Nadia in uniform, proud, composed. Viewers across the country sat quieter, anger deepening into reverence. Public sentiment shifted palpably. Veterans groups mobilized fully, posting their own tributes, sharing memories of officers like Nadia who led with courage and compassion. Social media filled with uniformed photos beside messages. This is who we serve with. This is who America should protect. The outrage now carried profound respect. Grief now carried fierce pride. Chief Donovan Briggs watched the Department of Defense statement dominate every channel and felt the foundation crack beneath him. He summoned his command staff again, voice sharper. Federal involvement is coming. Prepare unified responses. Stress policy adherence. But the room felt different, eyes avoiding his, loyalty fraying. Trent Lawson remained barricaded at home, administrative leave stretching into isolation. The official release reached him through a news notification on his silent phone. Words like active duty, valor, leadership stared back. He turned the phone face down, but the words stayed. Blake Hollis pulled over on a deserted road, opened the release on his department tablet. He read of missions Nadia had led, risks she had taken without hesitation. He compared it to the gas station, the command to kneel, the refusal rooted in dignity, not danger. His breathing grew shallow. Doubt turned to shame. Mayor Preston Langley gathered his advisors in a tense war room. Overnight polls showed approval in freefall. Staff urged stronger language, public contrition. Langley rehearsed a new address, promising independent review. But each draft felt weaker than the last. At the hospital, Nadia's vital signs held steady, a fragile plateau. Ela sat closer to the bed, reading schoolwork aloud, believing her voice might reach her mother. Theo coordinated with Military Family Services, now on site, ensuring every need was met. General Crow personally approved direct liaison with Isabella Cruz. Secure packets arrived at her office, further evidence of Nadia's spotless record, training certifications, peer reviews praising her calm under pressure. Jordan Hale spoke to an even larger vigil crowd, voice resonant. They wanted us to see a suspect. The United States military just showed us a hero. We honor that truth by refusing to let it be buried. Kai Rivera appeared in a follow-up interview, composure stronger. I recorded because someone had to bear witness. Now the whole world knows her name, her rank, her sacrifice. Protests evolved into solemn gatherings, candles replacing some signs, uniforms forming honor lines. Active duty personnel on leave joined quietly, standing in solidarity. Briggs received the formal federal demand letter, evidence preservation, full cooperation. He set it on his desk, hands unsteady. Langley faced a community town hall packed with veterans, questions direct and unflinching. He promised reform, but the room's skepticism was palpable. Hollis scheduled a confidential meeting with Internal Affairs, then canceled, then rescheduled. The pull of conscience grew unbearable. Lawson's home felt emptier. His wife took the children to her parents for a few days. The note she left was brief, loving, but distant. Camila Soto ended her broadcast reading one final citation for extraordinary heroism and selfless service. She looked straight into the camera. Major Nadia Brooks showed that heroism at a gas station too, protecting her daughter with her last strength. America must now show the same courage in protecting her legacy. Isla whispered to her sleeping mother. "They know you're a hero now, Mommy. Everyone knows." Theo stood watch. Pride and pain mingled. General Crow closed the day with a quiet order to his team. Prepare for testimony if needed. The truth about Major Brooks will not be redacted. Across the nation, living rooms grew thoughtful. Families discussed service, sacrifice, fairness. Veterans shared the release widely. Young recruits read it and felt renewed purpose. The portrait of Major Nadia Brooks, complete and undeniable, now stood before the country. Not a fleeting headline, a permanent reckoning. And those who had tried to diminish her found the ground beneath their defenses eroding faster, the light of truth exposing every shadow they had counted on to hide. Justice, backed by the full moral authority of the military she served, advanced steadily. No retreat, no compromise. For an active duty hero lying silent in a hospital bed, the nation finally began to stand at attention. Blake Hollis sat alone in his gentleman's living room, the glow of his phone screen the only light. The weight of the past weeks crushing him as every new headline, every vigil photograph, every released military citation reminded him of the woman whose life had been forever altered by his silence. He replayed the gas station scene endlessly. Lawson's harsh command, Nadia's measured refusal, the gunshot that shattered everything. Hollis had stood there, badge on his chest, and done nothing. He had filed the report as instructed. He had nodded when Briggs spoke of protecting the department. Now guilt consumed him, sharp and unrelenting. He opened his contacts, scrolled to internal affairs, stopped, then searched for Isabella Cruz's firm. He left a voicemail first, anonymous, voice low. "I was the second officer on scene. I have unaltered audio. The chief ordered changes." Isabella called back within the hour, calm and direct. "Meet me. Safe location. You will be protected," Hollis agreed, knowing the bridge behind him would burn, but also knowing he could no longer cross the one ahead carrying this lie. The next day, Hollis arrived at a nondescript federal annex, handed Isabella a small drive containing raw body cam files and radio logs. He sat across from her, eyes down at first. "Briggs told us to make it look like justified force. I went along. I thought it was loyalty. It was cowardice." Isabella listened without interruption, then spoke softly. "Your evidence will help bring justice for Major Brooks and her daughter. You are doing the right thing now." Hollis nodded, throat tight. "I owe them that much." Word of the whistleblower reached Chief Donovan Briggs, delivered by a nervous deputy. Briggs exploded in his office, slamming files on the desk, demanding names. Threatening discipline. But the damage spread faster than he could contain. Leaked fragments of the audio hit online forums, then mainstream outlets. Briggs called an impromptu press conference, face drawn. "We are aware of allegations and are conducting a full internal review," a reporter shouted. "Did you order evidence altered to protect the shooter?" Briggs hesitated, then said, "All procedures are being examined." The pause, the evasion played on repeat across networks. Theo Reed learned of the development from Isabella and drove immediately to a scheduled community accountability forum where Briggs was expected to appear. The auditorium filled with veterans, families, concerned citizens. When Briggs took the microphone, attempting composure, Theo rose from his seat, voice cutting through the room without need of amplification. "Chief Briggs, you gave orders to bury the truth while my niece, active duty Major Nadia Brooks, fought for her life after being shot for refusing to kneel in her own country's uniform. How do you justify that?" The room erupted in murmurs, phones capturing every second. Briggs gripped the podium, face reddening. "Sir, this is not the appropriate venue." Theo pressed on. "Then where is? While you hide reports?" Briggs stumbled, muttering about ongoing processes, but in his anger, let slip. Communications are always reviewed for accuracy. The admission fueled headlines for days. Jordan Hale mobilized instantly, declaring a national week of action. One brave officer has chosen truth over the blue wall. That courage honors Major Brooks. We answer it by refusing to let the system close ranks again. Marches linked cities through live streams. Veterans leading silent columns. Families holding photos of loved ones in uniform. The message unified. Accountability now. Mayor Preston Langley watched approval ratings collapse further. He scheduled a closed-door meeting with advisors, demanding options. One suggested blaming state oversight. Another urged resignation. Langley resisted, clinging to power, but isolation grew. General Elias Crow received encrypted confirmation of the whistleblower material from federal liaison. He briefed his team. "This corroborates everything. Push for expedited grand jury." Military support for the prosecution solidified. Camila Soto led evening coverage, airing redacted portions of the leaked audio, protecting sources. A second officer has provided evidence of direct interference from the highest levels of command. The cover-up is unraveling. Viewer reactions poured in. Support for the whistleblower, overwhelming. Trent Lawson learned of Hollis's actions through furious texts from old colleagues. He drove to Hollis's home, pounded on the door. Hollis answered, pale but resolute. Lawson hissed, "You stabbed me in the back." Hollis met his eyes. "I stopped helping you hide the truth. That is not betrayal. That is duty." Lawson left without another word, rage turning inward. Briggs canceled remaining public events, citing security. His secretary handed in notice. Phones in headquarters rang with resignation intentions. Langley's closest ally on council distanced publicly. Family dinners grew tense, his wife asking questions he could not answer honestly. At the hospital, Nadia showed small signs, fingers twitching when Isla spoke. The girl read aloud from a book of heroes, voice hopeful. Theo relayed every positive update to the legal team. Isabella incorporated the new evidence into amended filings, strengthening claims of conspiracy and rights violations. She met prosecutors, presenting a timeline now undeniable. Jordan Hale spoke to the largest assembly yet, voice carrying across a packed plaza. Truth is breaking through because one person refused to stay silent. We honor that by keeping our voices loud until change is real. Kai Rivera attended a vigil, speaking briefly. "I started with a video. Now someone inside finished what needed saying." General Crow authorized public affairs to affirm support for whistleblower protections. The message clear. The military stands for truth. Hollis began counseling, anonymous sessions where he spoke Nadia's name for the first time, without shame. Briggs stared at an empty office calendar, decades of service ending in disgrace. Langley drafted, then deleted, multiple resignation letters. Camila Soto closed her segment solemnly. The wall of silence has its first real crack. What began as one officer's conscience may end years of unchecked power. Isla kissed her mother's forehead before sleep. "They're fighting for you, Mommy, just like you taught me." Theo kept vigil, pride in Hollis's choice, mixing with sorrow for what it cost. General Crow reviewed final reports, knowing conviction now probable. Across the nation, conversations turned from outrage to possibility. Families discussed speaking up, doing right even when hard. Veterans nodded approval at the whistleblower's courage. The machinery of concealment groaned under new weight. Cracks widened into fractures. And those who had built their authority on silence found it crumbling piece by irrevocable piece, as truth once whispered by one conscience now thundered for all to hear. Justice for Major Nadia Brooks advanced, no longer a hope, but an inevitability. Judge Marisol Vega entered the federal courtroom in Chicago with the quiet authority of someone who understood the gravity of what was about to unfold, her robes rustling softly as she took the bench and looked out over a room packed to capacity. The trial of Officer Trent Lawson for the shooting of active-duty Major Nadia Brooks opened under a national spotlight so intense that satellite trucks lined the streets for blocks, every network carrying live feeds, every seat occupied by veterans in dress uniforms, family members clutching photographs, reporters poised with notebooks and cameras just outside the doors. Prosecutors began methodically. The stop initiated with no probable cause, the immediate escalation. The command to kneel delivered with contempt. The calm refusal rooted not in defiance but in earned dignity. The single gunshot fired without warning. Isabella Cruz sat at the plaintiff's table beside Theo Reed and Isla, her hand resting lightly on the girl's shoulder when emotions rose too high. Blake Hollis was called as the first major witness for the prosecution. He walked to the stand in civilian clothes, no badge, no gun belt, face drawn from sleepless nights. He swore the oath, then spoke in a voice that started shaky but grew steadier with every sentence. Major Brooks presented zero threat. She identified herself repeatedly, showed military ID, kept her hands visible, and positioned herself between us and her daughter. After the shooting, Chief Briggs personally instructed us to alter reports, delete segments, and emphasize non-compliance to justify lethal force. He looked directly at the jury. I followed those orders for weeks. I was wrong. Major Brooks deserved better from all of us. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as the unedited audio played. Briggs's voice cold and unmistakable. Hollis never looked at Lawson once. Isla Brooks followed, led gently to the stand by a bailiff. She wore a navy dress with a small American flag pin Theo had given her. Judge Vega leaned forward, voice soft. "Whenever you are ready, sweetheart." Isla placed the framed photo of her mother in dress blues on the rail. She looked at the jury, eyes clear despite the tears that waited behind them. Mommy always said soldiers stand tall when they know they are right. That day, the man told her to kneel. She said she was active duty, and she was holding me so she would not. Then he shot her. She fell on top of me so I would not get hurt. She was bleeding a lot, but she still tried to smile so I would not be scared. Isla's small voice never wavered. Mommy did not do anything wrong. She was just trying to take me home. Several jurors wiped their eyes. One veteran in the gallery stood in silent salute. Trent Lawson took the stand in his own defense, posture rigid, answers rehearsed. I followed training. Subject refused lawful orders. I perceived a threat to officer safety. Prosecutors played the video in slow motion. Frame by frame, they introduced personnel files showing prior excessive force complaints, patterns of escalation during routine stops involving black citizens. On cross-examination, Isabella Cruz asked quietly, "Did Major Brooks ever reach for a weapon?" Lawson shifted. "No, ma'am." "Did she advance toward you or your partner?" "No." "Did she raise her voice or make any aggressive movement?" A longer pause. "No." "Then what justified discharging your firearm?" Lawson had no credible answer. The jury saw it plainly. Chief Donovan Briggs was compelled to testify, entering the box with shoulders hunched. Prosecutors played Hollis's recordings again, Briggs's own voice ordering the cover-up. He claimed context, miscommunication, anything but admission. The jury heard only obstruction. His authority dissolved in real time. Mayor Preston Langley appeared under subpoena, questioned about years of defunded oversight boards, ignored complaints, political pressure on the department. He offered polished remorse, but the numbers spoke louder than his words. General Elias Crow testified in full dress uniform, ribbons gleaming, voice carrying the weight of decades. He detailed Nadia's missions, the soldiers she saved, the leadership she displayed under fire. Major Brooks lived the Army values every single day: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. She showed that same courage at a gas station, protecting her daughter with her body while wearing the uniform of the nation she served. Dr. Camila Soto described arriving to find a decorated officer bleeding out on concrete, the unnecessary horror of it all. Kai Rivera recounted filming because someone had to bear witness. Jordan Hale spoke from the courthouse steps each day, keeping the public pulse strong. Camila Soto anchored nightly recaps, framing each testimony with solemn respect. Today, a child reminded a nation what true courage looks like. Closing arguments arrived. The prosecution spoke of betrayal of oath, of a soldier denied the protection she gave freely. Isabella Cruz addressed the jury last. Major Nadia Brooks gave America everything. In return, she was asked to kneel, and when she would not, she was shot for it. Give her the justice this country owes her. Give Isla the truth that her mother was right to stand tall. The jury deliberated. Verdict: guilty on all counts. First-degree manslaughter with hate crime and abuse of authority enhancements. Judge Marisol Vega looked at Lawson before sentencing. You swore to protect and serve. Instead, you humiliated and executed a decorated officer for the crime of refusing degradation in front of her child. 25 years, no parole for 15. The sentence reflects the betrayal of every value you pretended to uphold. Blake Hollis, having accepted a plea for cooperation, received probation and permanent disqualification. Alone in his apartment, he wrote a letter of apology to Isla that would be delivered after his death. He could not live with what he had allowed. Chief Briggs was indicted the same week on federal obstruction charges. He resigned at a press conference that lasted 47 seconds, voice cracking, pension forfeited, facing decades in prison if convicted. Mayor Langley lost re-election by the widest margin in city history. Subsequent investigations uncovered corruption tied to police contracts. He retreated into silence, family scattered, name erased from public buildings. At the hospital, Nadia's monitors showed steady improvement the day the verdict was read. Isla kissed her mother's cheek and whispered, "They said you were right, Mommy. They finally said it." Theo stood in the hallway, tears falling without shame. General Crow saluted reporters outside the courthouse. Justice today honors every soldier who wears the uniform. Jordan Hale led a closing gathering, voice hushed with victory. We marched. We spoke. We never looked away. This is what accountability feels like. Camila Soto signed off her final broadcast. A courtroom in Chicago today reminded a nation that no one is above the truth, not even those who carry the badge. Isabella Cruz hugged Isla on the courthouse steps. Your mother stood tall. Today, the country finally stood with her. Judge Vega returned to chambers, closed the case file, and allowed herself one quiet moment of gratitude that the system for once had worked. The verdict traveled across the country like a long overdue exhale. Departments rewrote policies overnight. Training academies added mandatory segments on recognizing military personnel. Conversations about power, race, and service deepened in homes and barracks alike. Lawson entered federal prison. Stripped of everything he had once believed made him untouchable. Briggs awaited his own trial, isolated and broken. Langley watched from a distance as the city he once led moved forward without him. Hollis's letter reached Isla years later. She read it, forgave in her own time, and placed it beside her mother's medals. And in the quiet aftermath, America absorbed the cost of one moment of unchecked prejudice and the hard-won price of making it right. Major Nadia Brooks had stood tall when it mattered most. On this day, the nation finally stood tall with her. Years passed with quiet determination, and Isla Brooks stood tall on the sunlit parade ground of the United States Military Academy, her uniform pressed to perfection, the rank of cadet gleaming under a clear sky. She had grown into a young woman of 16, strong and composed, carrying her mother's memory like a torch that never dimmed. On this graduation day, thousands gathered, families proud and tearful, instructors in dress uniforms, dignitaries from across the services, veterans who had marched for justice years ago, all assembled to witness the next generation step forward. Isla marched with her class, eyes forward, heart steady. When her name was called, she accepted her commission with a salute crisp and sure. The ceremony paused for the keynote. Isla took the podium, microphone steady in her hand. She looked out over the sea of faces, voice clear and calm, carrying the weight of everything that had come before. Today, I accept this commission in service to the United States. My mother, Major Nadia Brooks, active duty officer, decorated leader, devoted parent, taught me what service truly means. She stood tall when ordered to kneel. She protected me with her body when a bullet came. She gave everything for this country, believing it would protect her in return. Isla paused, letting the words settle. She was wrong about the protection, but she was right about the standing tall. The audience sat in silence. No coughs, no shifts, only respect. Isla continued. What happened to my mother was not just one moment. It was a failure to see her fully, to honor the uniform she wore, the oath she kept. But from that pain came change, policies rewritten, training strengthened, oversight created, because people refused to look away. She looked toward this front row where Theo Reed sat, eyes shining with pride, and toward the veterans who had stood with them. I ask now, in my mother's memory, and for every service member who puts on this uniform believing in its promise, for 2 minutes of silence, not for mourning alone, for recommitment, to the values we swear to uphold, to seeing each other clearly, to protecting those who protect us without signal or command. The entire assembly rose, cadets at attention, officers saluting, families standing still. 2 full minutes passed in perfect quiet. The only sound a gentle breeze moving the flags above. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence carried gratitude, resolve, remembrance. When time ended, Isla stepped back. Applause did not come. Instead, a slow ripple of salutes spread across the ranks, cadet to cadet, veteran to veteran, civilian to soldier. The gesture said everything words could not. Deputy Secretary Adrian Hale addressed the crowd next, voice formal but warm. In response to the events surrounding Major Nadia Brooks, the Department of Defense has implemented lasting reforms. Mandatory training for all law enforcement partners on recognition of military personnel and bias awareness. A permanent fund supporting families of service members affected by domestic violence. Joint oversight boards with real authority. These changes honor her service and ensure no one in uniform faces what she did. He paused. Major Brooks's name is now engraved on the Wall of Honor at the Pentagon, beside those who gave their lives in defense of this nation. She belongs there. The audience finally applauded, long and sustained, a release of years held in check. Theo Reed embraced Isla afterward, whispering, "Your mother is proud today. So proud." Isla nodded, eyes dry but bright. "I felt her here, Uncle Theo. Every second." General Elias Crow, now retired but present in uniform, approached and saluted Isla. Your mother led with courage. You carry it forward." Isla returned the salute, crisp and proud. Jordan Hale stood with former protesters, now community leaders, watching from the sidelines. He smiled quietly. The marches had led here. Camila Soto broadcast the ceremony live, voice soft at the end. Today, a daughter stepped into her mother's legacy. Silence spoke louder than any speech. Isabella Cruz watched from the audience. Case long closed. Civil settlement funding Ila's future. She whispered to herself, "Justice. Finally." Judge Marisol Vega attended as a guest, reflecting on the trial that had changed so much. Years of quiet work followed the verdict. Departments across the country adopted new protocols. Recruit classes studied the case, not as tragedy alone, but as lesson in recognition, restraint, respect. Veterans returned home feeling seen in ways they had not before. Lawson served his sentence in federal custody, name stripped from records, story a cautionary one in training films. Briggs's trial ended in conviction, his remaining years spent in regret and obscurity. Langley lived quietly, public life over, a footnote in history books. Hollis's letter reached Isla on her 18th birthday. She read it, forgave in silence, and placed it with her mother's medals. Nadia Brooks never fully recovered physically, but she lived, surrounded by love, watching her daughter grow into the officer she had dreamed of raising. She attended Ila's commissioning in a wheelchair, pushed by Theo, eyes shining with pride that needed no words. On this graduation day, the nation paused with Isla's 2 minutes. Families across America watched the broadcast, talked afterward about service, about fairness, about standing tall when it matters. Veterans groups added Nadia's name to memorial walls. Schools taught her story alongside those of other quiet heroes. Ila's commission marked not an end, but a beginning. The promise renewed. The uniform's meaning restored, not perfectly, but meaningfully. And in that vast assembly, under flags snapping in the breeze, a young woman stepped forward, carrying her mother's courage, her homeland's debt finally acknowledged, her future wide open. Major Nadia Brooks had stood tall when the world demanded she bow. Years later, her daughter stood taller still, backed now by a nation that had learned slowly and painfully to stand with her. The silence ended. The applause never really stopped. It lived on in every new policy, every trained officer, every child who learned that courage in uniform deserves protection. Isla saluted the colors one final time as a cadet, then turned toward her future as an officer. The path ahead was hers, paved by her mother's sacrifice and a country's hard-won resolve. America watched, quieter now, but stronger. The lesson held, the legacy endured. And in the heart of one young lieutenant, the flag flew higher than ever before. Thank you so much for watching this story to the end. If it moved you, please like, comment your city, and share with one person. Every share keeps Major Brooks's legacy alive. Thank you for caring.